1 minute.
Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Bruce Buffington.
And I'm Ann Morrow.
You're watching Northwest Bicycle Safety Council's Cycology Today. And Ann, you had a little special thanks that you wanted to extend to Northwest Bicycle Safety Council.
Well, I do want to thank Northwest Bicycle Safety Council for providing us with a meal this evening before the show for our volunteer crew and our guests this evening.
This is our third year on the air, and Northwest Bicycle Safety Council, in case you don't know, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping everyone safely share the road. Now, Ann, you're going to be interviewing a couple of people tonight, and the first guest is Jessica Dorrington. Is that right? Did I
Yes.
say that? Jessica Dorrington. And she's the director and physical therapist of Bethany Therapeutic Associates. And also, she brought along with her Morgan Denny, and Morgan Denny is a physical therapist at the Downtown Therapeutic Associates. And later on, after the interview, they're going to have a three-person interview, and they're going to have a bicycle demonstration on the best fitting bicycle, and it's going to be done by experts, I understand.
Well, our guests are experts, so yes,
And so I know we've had a fun-packed weekend.
we did.
And we're going to catch up on that in just a few moments. But I'd like to welcome our viewers at CCTV down in Salem. There's a whole lot of things going on down in Salem, and we're going to talk about a few of them, aren't we?
Yeah, you've got some old buddies down there that you used to ride with.
I do, and I want to give a shout out to Winnie, Al, Tom, and Cindy. They lead rides for the Salem Bicycle Club. You can go on salembicycleclub.org and get their ride schedule. Also, I like to mention my old friend Gus, and he is leading rides down there as well. Now, some of these rides will already have passed possibly by the time you see the replays, but starting July 26th, they have rides that range from 29 miles all the way up to 61 miles. They have some that are beginner level or new and emerging level rides like we have right here in Portland. And you've ridden some of the rides down there in Salem, haven't you?
Yes, you know, the Salem Bike Club and many of the local bike clubs put on what I call event rides. That is, you pay a little bit of money to do the ride, but they feed you and they take care of you. They might have a SAG vehicle. Some of the bike shops come out, and if you have bike problems, they'll fix those. So the Salem Bike Club has 3 main event rides each year. And Bruce, they're all food oriented.
And how did I know about that? I ride to eat and I eat to ride.
Many of us do. So first off, in April, we've got the Monster Cookie Ride. Cookies.
That's right.
And then later in the summer, the Watermelon Ride.
That's right.
And then in September, the Peach of a Century.
The Peach of a Century, I have done that one, and I always get 2 slices of that peach pie.
Well, if you rode 100 miles, I guess you can get away with that.
I think I deserve it. Now, you have gotten the same award that I've gotten for doing all 3 of those rides. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Salem gives out a road animal. I've got a glass, like a clear glass, and it says road animal. You don't have a glass? You have a cup?
No, I didn't get a cup. I got a little pouch that said road animal.
Oh, I've got a glass that I have at work, so I proudly have my water in it.
Hey, we got to do something about
Yeah,
that.
maybe they...
I want a cup. Hey, where are you at? I want a cup. Okay. I want to get one of those. Now, are you going to do those 3? You did the Monster Cookie Ride this year
Did the Monster
already?
Cookie
You
Ride.
did the watermelon?
Did not do the watermelon.
Okay. So you're not going to get your road
No,
animal
not this year.
award this year. Well, there's some other rides, too, that are going on from Portland Wheelman Touring Club, where we're going to talk about some of those later on and kind of give an idea of some of the easy rides, family rides, group rides, new and emerging rides. But You and I had a pretty good weekend this past weekend because we worked the STP. You want to tell our viewers a little bit about the STP?
Yeah, the STP is not a motor oil additive. It's not Stone Temple Pilots. It's Seattle to Portland Bicycle Classic.
Absolutely.
Put on by Group Health. So the Cascade Bicycle Club, Seattle's bicycle club, organizes this little ride. There's only 9,500 riders doing it, and some of them come down from Seattle in 1 day, and some come down in 2 days. And so you and I manned the finish line for a time this weekend.
Yes, we did.
And what we called announce. We welcomed these riders into Portland, into the finish line where there was a beer garden and a party and shower truck and then buses to take some of the people back up to Seattle. And boy, we saw some hot, tired riders this weekend.
We did, and that's one of my favorite rides. I've done the STP myself 6 times, and I am a one-day rider. I really enjoy that. But this year, something special happened. They had 2,800 one-day riders. Can you imagine that?
It used to be about 1,500, and now the number's gone up. So I think, I don't know, maybe younger people are doing the ride, or anyway, you have to train real hard and be pretty fit to do it in 1 day. But it's a great ride. It's a great goal to set for a cyclist. It's not too soon to start thinking about 2009 and
That's
how
right.
you can build a base this year and then really hit it hard after the first of the year to train for that ride.
I'm glad you said that about the training, and my wife will remember this. The first time I ever thought about doing it, I was known as a couch potato, and I had a couch potato shirt. I weighed 50-some pounds more than I do now. And I was watching TV, and I saw in the news where all of these riders were coming in from the Seattle to Portland ride. And I said to my wife, I said, you know, I wonder if I could do that. She says, well, if you plan to do that, you better get busy right now. Well, they have a training schedule, a ride training schedule that's really easy to follow. And if you work the schedule, it's not taxing, and it prepared me for my first 2-day ride with the STP. Now, granted, it was my first time out of the blocks on such a double century. I hadn't even done a century and then jump into a double century, but it's doable. That's the thing to remember. And you work on that schedule, then you decide that you want to do it in 1 day. They have a 1-day schedule to follow.
Yeah.
I was most impressed with the fact that everyone cooperated. We're talking about the pedestrians, the cyclists, and the motorists. Was that the feeling that you got?
Definitely. Portland really showed why it's a platinum bicycle-friendly city this weekend, because welcoming all those cyclists, and boy, those cyclists are tired. They are not necessarily following all the rules, not because they're bad, it's just they're tired. They forget, and where's the finish line, and you know, they just want to be done. And so everybody was really courteous. You're right. I mean, it's right there by Lloyd Center, a very busy area, and we blocked off some streets and things, and I'm sure made things difficult for some of the shoppers for Lloyd Center, but everybody was very courteous.
And there were a whole lot of people smiling as they came across the finish line. I noticed that you spritzed a few of them. They seemed to appreciate that.
They loved that. They said, I love you, and I'd spritz them with some cool water on the hot Sunday afternoon.
And the bubbles were a nice addition.
We had
too.
bubbles too, always festive.
Now, can you explain the coordination of that event? I mean, it's huge, 10,000 people. How do they start with the coordination and control those big crowds like that?
Well, the Seattle Bike Club gets them started at the University of Washington, and they do a lot of it. And if you haven't ridden an event ride, maybe you haven't seen their what's called Dan Henrys on the road. They're little painted markings that tell you which way to go. And Bruce, I don't know about you when you did STP, but they gave you a big map, like a book, because you're going 200 miles, so you have to flip through this book. I opened it up to the first page in Seattle the first day, and when I got into Portland the second day, it was still on the first page because the route was marked so clearly. And so part of it is just the organization. Seattle has people that do these same tasks every year, like permitting and working with law enforcement personnel, and the Goldwing motorcycle riders offer support.
Yes, they do. And you're right. You don't have to use your map. I don't know that I've ever had to use my map or cue sheet because the Dan Henrys were, clearly marked the roads. And at some intersections, they'd have law enforcement or some volunteers giving additional direction. Now, one of the things that I noticed is that once they started coming into Portland, the finish line was so well organized?
Well, Portland Wheelman works with the Cascade Bicycle Club to do the finish line, and we've done that for many, many years. And it's the same situation where many people have done these same jobs every year, and it is just like clockwork. You don't even have to tell these people what to do. There's an information booth. There's a baggage because people bring their luggage, you know, if they stayed overnight, and their tents and things. There's a bike corral. There are buses leaving.
Oh, yes,
and you did buses.
I worked buses every year for quite a few years, and that's fun too, because now you're getting, when you do it on Friday to get them up to Seattle, they're excited. We're getting their bikes on the trucks. They're very well taken care of. They're impressed with the organization, and as the bus fills up and takes off, I remember the feeling going up the first time, and I remember all the subsequent trips as well. But that Monday bus, that is the most fun. And that Monday bus are the people who came down from Seattle to start the ride from here. So they took the bus, Wheelman bus up, rode back, and then they had another bus ticket to get back home on Monday. And a lot of them stayed at the DoubleTree Hotel, which has been very accommodating. When you talk about the bags were well organized. The hotel had security on hand to assist with traffic flow and all those kinds of things. I think they should be commended for helping every year as well.
And it's so nice that it's close. The ride used to end in Cathedral Park under the St. John's Bridge.
That's right.
And people from Seattle, guests, were looking for a place to spend the night. And you'd have to, well, you're going to have to go downtown. And that was a big, hard trip. And they'd just ridden 200 miles. And here, there's the DoubleTree right there. So they don't have to go anywhere. It's very convenient.
And you're not just talking, because the first time I did it in one day, I had booked a reservation at the DoubleTree. So when I came back, it was very nice. Well, they have showers all the time at the finish line, with portable showers. But I was looking forward to dinner, shower, and a nice bed, and then I worked the event the next 2 days.
Oh, I see.
To me, that was the most fun.
Yeah.
Now, how many times have you done it?
Bruce, I've actually lost track. Probably about 10 times or so. Many, many times. Since about 1993, I've done it many times in 2 days. I'm a big believer that if you do the ride in 2 days, you ride as far as you possibly can that first day.
So you may want to go to Castle Rock or something
Rock,
and pick it up
Kelso,
the next day.
Longview if you can.
Yes.
You've got all day to ride your bike. So if it's like 134 miles, well, you just ride, ride, ride.
If I'm remembering correctly, you do something that's quite impressive. Have you done it on a tandem?
I did.
You're a tandem rider?
Yes.
And what's that experience like?
Well, I joke that I've done it so many times, I know where they take your picture on STP, by the big red barn. And so I knew they were going to take our picture. And my husband is pedaling furiously, and he's kind of grimacing. And I had brought along a nail file, and I pulled out my nail file, and when they took our picture, I'm filing my nails and looking very casual, and Jim's all bent over, grimacing, pedaling furiously. And I say, oh, the picture was posed, Jim. And he's going, no, they just caught you.
So you have Jim, your husband, Jim, is the captain. Is
That's
that right?
And I'm the stoker.
And you're the stoker. So being husband and wife, you have, that takes a lot of cooperation, doesn't it?
It does, riding a tandem. It takes some compromise, because my husband's a big, strong guy and he pushes big, hard gears. I like to spin. He doesn't like to spin. So we've had to compromise so that we're both kind of comfortable on the tandem.
Now, if he wants to go right and you want to go left, do you just simply stop pedaling until you get your way, or how does that work?
I've been known to stop pedaling, yes.
That's got to be hard. I've never ridden a tandem, but my goodness, I never pass up an opportunity to draft a tandem, because that will pick your speed up.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, some of the other things that they do on that ride is that they have a contractual agreement between the Cascade Bicycle Club and the Portland Wheelman Touring Club, but then there's a great big sponsor involved in this. And there's that Good Health, is that
Group
Group Health Network.
Yeah.
And so they basically have the medical teams out there.
Yes.
I saw a lot of medical teams coming in.
I think they said at least last year there were probably 75 people doing the ride that were medical personnel, and so they could render some first aid if something happened.
And I like some of the people who were waiting on people to come in, and there were birthdays going on, and we got requests, and there were signs. But I like the photo ops. I felt special. You didn't get to see those, did you?
No.
Yes, I actually had my picture taken with several
By
of the
who?
spectators.
Oh.
Oh yeah. Well, they took them. They had somebody take them.
Oh.
But they thought it was so neat that they had an announcer there, and I said, "Well, if you think I'm something, wait till you see my co-host." And then they totally ignored me after that. I couldn't get any play. What happened? Now, I've worked that event a lot, and I plan to work it again, probably as long as I'm able to work the event. I don't do as much writing as I used to, but I would encourage anyone that wants to at least come out and volunteer for it. It's a very special time. You get to meet a lot of people, and you can see these cyclists come in, and cyclists, I believe, that do event rides and group rides and club rides are some of the most friendly people on the road.
You know, yeah, anytime you talk about like a club member, you say, well, do you know so-and-so? They're a really nice person. I mean, it's just always, they're nice. You know, you just make a lot of nice friends cycling.
We're the group that learns how to communicate within the group, how to look out for one another with obstacles and hazards. We call out things to each other.
Mm-hmm.
We obey the law. We obey all of the traffic laws. We stop, red means stop,
Yeah.
Stop means stop. And we also bring along the new and emerging rider, especially on social rides, where you can find out and get connected to other clubs, groups, and the cycling community in general when you go out on group rides.
Yeah.
Now, I have a little special packet that I really like, and the city of Portland puts this out. And it is called the Portland by Cycle Kit Let's Ride. I don't know that if you can see that. And it's a packet that contains some goodies in here. There's a couple of things that aren't in here because I used them and they're not replaced. But remember they had the Sunday Parkways?
That was a lot of fun.
That was
I
in
hope
there
they do it
announcing
again.
events.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I worked that.
That's right.
We fitted over 400 helmets at that event. They didn't seem to have any kind of disruption with the traffic or anything like that. I didn't get to ride it, but the people who did that I know, they said it was a very, very pleasant riding experience and went without incident as far as I know. And, you know, we had the REI Women on Wheels on the show.
Right.
And they did a demonstration. Well, the Portland what are they called, the Office of Transportation, they put out a little pamphlet for Women on Wheels, their own program, and they have clinics and rides and all sorts of things that go on. That's in your packet. I wanted to share these things with you because there are so many groups, organizations, and government entities that are bringing about awareness with these kinds of things. Not only are we looking at laws, rules, engineering and design, and awareness and education enforcement of our roads, and attempts to get people to share the road, they also add some fun guides in here too. And here's a guide to your ride. You know, tips, techniques, and streets that are smart for you to ride safer. Those are the kind of things you're going to find in a packet like this. You know, Northwest Bicycle Safety Council has a packet that it gives out as well. We have all kinds of safety stickers. We have helmet, medical alert, ID tags that are free to the public. Anytime you want one of those, you can contact us at www.nwbicyclesafetycouncil.org. Shoot us an email, and we'll see that you get one. So these are the kind of things that you can pick up, and a little information on the BTA. All right, well, Ann, I think it is time for me to turn the interview segment over to you.
Okay.
And you will further introduce our guest.
All right, very good, Bruce.
All right.
We'll see you soon.
Yes.
All right, well, we've got two guests here this evening, and we've got Jessica and Morgan from Therapeutic Associates. And I'm going to start by talking to you about your bicycle experience. You're wearing bicycle jerseys, and I take it this isn't a costume. This is something that you wear legitimately. So, Jessica, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
Why don't you talk about some of your bicycling background then?
Sure, and I actually am a cyclist who stumbled upon it by accident. I'm a runner at heart and ran marathons and half marathons and road races and decided I need to do something for cross training. And so I got out my old trusty mountain bike and decided I was going to do a triathlon and trained for the triathlon on my mountain bike. And the day of the race, or the day before the race, a patient actually convinced me to use their road bike and said, you might do a little better if you use a road bike.
So.
And I said, no, there's not that big of a difference, but I'll try it. Needless to say, I felt fast and furious and was hooked ever since. So have kind of converted over to part of my workout routines for cycling, and do a lot of leisure rides.
Okay.
And I think I might have to talk to you after the show on how to get my husband to switch over to that tandem bike, because that does sound interesting.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a good, it can be a good way for couples to enjoy the sport together.
Yeah.
And Morgan?
I actually got into cycling because I didn't own a car for a long time, and so I was put onto my, garage sale Huffy, and I got around the city that way and found out I really like pedaling. So that's how I started into biking. Since then, I've done a majority of mountain biking until moving to the city of Portland, and did some mountain bike racing, got into road biking. Now I'm very much a road bike cyclist in and around Portland, but I do mostly multi-sport races. So this year I'm doing a lot of duathlons, but I've done a lot of triathlons in the past. But mostly I'm a bike commuter. So there's not a day that I don't ride to work or ride to the grocery store or ride wherever the heck in town I need to go. So.
And how many bikes do you own then, Morgan?
Oh, that's a guilty question. Well, that is what I have a garage for. I actually technically own 5. Only one is a fancy bike, and the others are actually all cruisers or commuters.
Sure.
Because it's kind of a little hobby. I like to tinker with bikes and play on bikes, and there's nothing like tooling around town on a 1962 little Schwinn that's blue and has baskets and a great horn. There's nothing that can't be said about a great horn.
Sounds like you're a true Portlander.
Love it, love it.
Well, let's get serious for a minute. Let's talk about your professional background, because we're going to talk to you as experts about fitting on our bike, and there's maybe more to it than maybe some of us considered. Morgan, how about you? What is your professional background working at Therapeutic Associates, and how do you come to this fitting people on bikes?
Well, I work at the downtown clinic inside Bally's Total Fitness, and we do mostly outpatient orthopedics. But one thing that's great about downtown that I appreciate is that tons of my patients commute downtown by bike or are cyclists at heart. But you can address a lot of different conditions, whether it be back pain or foot pain or ankle pain or knee pain. But if they get on their bike and it's incorrect for their body, they're just going to recreate their problem over and over again. So for me, it's like I kind of got into it as an understanding of, I can see where the pedal stroke will be different if you were incorrectly fit on your bike, or how it might cause you to have knee pain or back pain or neck pain. And so I took some classes, and for the last 2 years I've been doing bike fits not only for my patients, but for professional cyclists and just people around town who happen to hear about our program or maybe only have hip pain when they're on their bike. So for me, it's become a really important aspect of treatment because I can see how much more functional it makes patients and how much more they enjoy their bike, which, if you're not going to have fun on your bike, you're not going to ride. So it's become a really important aspect for me. And also, it's really interesting because as therapists, one of the things we do is we really look at movement patterns. So when you're on your bike, just like walking, just like how you lift, just like how you kick a soccer ball, how you pedal your bike is a very different movement pattern. So to get someone on a bike and look at how they're moving is a whole different art. So that's a really fun aspect of our job.
So there you go. You're kind of delving into what we're going to be talking about. And Jessica, how about you?
Yeah, both of us have our physical therapy degrees. Morgan received her doctorate, correct? And I have my master's, along with a lot of continuing education as well underneath the cycle realm. And just learning how to make the patient more comfortable on there. And in her realm, she sees a lot more commuters. I think I see more of the recreational athletes who are trying to use it for their health maintenance. Bethany is a community that is out in the suburbs, and not as many people are commuting out where we're at.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
You work on that.
I could maybe offer some insight.
Yeah, 17-mile commute. So we've talked a little bit about, again, you're from Therapeutic Associates. Bruce keeps telling me about this bicycle camp.
Yeah.
And tell us about that. Is that for adults? Tell us about the camp.
The bicycle camp is a wonderful event. It's held in Bend every year. It's actually this weekend, the 18th, 19th, and 20th. It is for riders of all abilities, and they just have a lot of fun down there. They've got an MD who is very pronounced in the cycling world, who does lactate testing for the cyclists. They have a PT who does the cycle fit for them, and then they just provide a ton of education for them. And the education is from anything from nutrition to how to balance their training programs, and just have a lot of fun with it in the group setting as well. So,
About how many people go to this camp?
you know, I'm not sure what their numbers were last year, and I'm not sure how many are registered for this year. So.
It's probably pretty varied, but man,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, like cycling in Bend. There's so much good road trip out
Yes,
there.
yes.
Yeah, and just so much wealth of knowledge with the professionals that they do bring in from the cycling community to give these cyclists information. So,
It sounds like fun.
yeah.
Have either of you been?
No.
Sadly, no.
No.
Sadly,
You have
no.
to figure that
I'm
out.
gonna have to work on the boss getting Friday off, maybe.
Well, we're here to talk about bicycle fit, and again, you kind of touched on this. I've had my bicycle fit so that it fits me and my size, but you're talking about there's more to it really than that, because I am a unique individual, and like you're saying, the way I move and maybe the length of my legs, even though I'm a certain height, is different than somebody else that's my height, and things are just going to work differently. So we kind of want to talk about that this evening. Why don't you start out, Jessica? Basically, I've had my bike fit, but I'm still having some problems. Where do we start on this?
We actually first start off the bike.
Okay.
And with physical therapy, that's the main big difference between a bike fit in just a regular bike fit versus a bike fit from a physical therapist, is we first look at your history. Your history tells us a lot. Not all of us have had accidents, maybe have a joint that aches or a pain here and there, and then we take a look at what your body has for structure. Right, you have to work within that body all day long. We want to see how your muscles move, how strong your muscles are, how flexible your muscles and joints are, and then, as Morgan said earlier, how those muscles move in a movement pattern, how everything kind of works together. And we take a look and see first what happens there, and then we get onto the bike.
So what kinds of things would you have me do to see how I move?
Well, for example, we might have you just stand up without your shoes on and see what your feet do. Because some people's feet have higher arches and some people's feet have lower arches. So as you put weight through your foot, your force distribution is very different. So that's going to come out when you're on the bike, you know, when you're pedaling. We might look at how your knees are aligned, because some people have different types of rotation. Same with your hips or low back. You know, we might have you do simple stuff like touch your toes, just to see if your hamstrings are long enough. Because if you don't have that availability of muscle length or flexibility in the first place, there's things that we know that you're not going to be able to do on your bike, or changes we know that would be inappropriate for your bike. So that's important for us to note, because we don't want to put you in a position that technically looks good in terms of measuring angles of your body on your bike, and then have it give you more pain, or any pain for that matter.
So flexibility is kind of an issue too, but I could increase my flexibility perhaps.
You certainly can. And if we saw that it was appropriate, we would give you some stretching and say, hey, we're going to adjust your bike this way today. But know that we might do further adjustments after you've done these appropriate activities. Same with strengthening. We might see you do a certain pedaling pattern and know that certain elements are weaker. So we might give you certain cues and certain exercises to work on at home, and then bring you back for a recheck and say, let's see how those are going. Let's see how different your strength is now. Put you on the bike and teach you how to use it.
Okay, so theoretically, if I'm new getting back into exercise, I might be in a certain situation and you'd help me with my bike fit. 2 years from now, I've been working out and I've got much more muscle strength and I'm more flexible. My bike fit might be totally different then.
It might be totally different, or it might be just a little bit changed. There might be things we might be able to make you more aggressive, because putting someone at the best possible place on their bike will make them more efficient, more power production, and it'll make things easier, and not only accommodate for injuries or pain you do have, but also prevent for other injuries that we don't want you to develop because you might have an incorrect fit. So yeah, it could change. Definitely could change.
And we are later in the program going to get one of you on the bike and, and really show this. Right now we're just talking. We're going to have some demonstration.
Oh yes,
a
we're
little
more
later,
than just talk.
because we want people to be getting on their bicycles, even if it's an old Huffy.
Even if it's an old Huffy or Schwinn.
Well, so part of the element might be that I've had previous injuries, or someone's had previous injuries. That never occurred to me. How does that enter in, Jessica?
A lot of it looks at just what forces are going into that joint. So maybe you've had a bad shoulder and you can't put as much pressure on the hoods, or maybe you've had a bad back injury that you have to change the angle of your seat in order to take some of the forces out of and minimize the forces that are going through that injury-related area. So.
I see.
And definitely there are certain changes that would and wouldn't be appropriate for certain injuries, but also just looking at your history in terms of how much do you ride, you know? Are you on your bike only for, you know, a 5-mile commute in the morning? I mean, not only, that's amazing and awesome, and everyone should do it. But, you know, is it that, or are you riding centuries every weekend? Are you putting 50 miles on your bike 5 days a week? Because we might make a smaller change on someone's bike who rides a lot because they're going to be so much more sensitive to it.
Yeah.
And we might make like a huge change on someone's bike if they haven't been on it for a while, knowing that their body's not going to know the difference. So it's really important to look at all those different aspects of what kind of bike, how much they pedal, previous history, all that stuff. So there are so many elements that we take in physical therapy. They're just part of a normal evaluation, but then we specialize them to the bike.
So there's differences for the commuter bike. I mean, a lot of times a commuter sits pretty upright, totally different position than somebody maybe trying to ride from Seattle to Portland in one day where they're all bent over. So there'd be totally different fittings for that situation.
It would be completely different fittings, yes.
And that's why you have different bicycles.
Yes, you do, if you're lucky, and you have a garage.
If you're lucky, yes. How many clinics are there, you know, around the Portland area? I know there's quite a few, and you each represent 2 of them.
Yes,
the best ones, of course.
Well, we have 18 clinics currently in the Portland metro area. There's 35 in Oregon, and we're a Pacific Northwest company, so also in Washington, Idaho, and California. In our Portland metro area, we have 3 clinics that actually specialize in the CycleFit programs, and that's the Downtown Valleys Clinic, the Bethany Clinic, and then Todd Cruz, our director, out at our Montgomery Park Clinic.
So we could call any clinic and get directed to one of these
Yes, correct.
clinics.
It's also on our website.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. We've got a video to show about adult bicycle safety, and Bruce is going to introduce that for us. And then, like I said, we're going to have one of you on the bike, and we'll talk some more about this.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and you know, that's very interesting that you have to know a little bit about how to get yourself into shape before getting on the bike. I'm standing next to this beautiful bike, which we're going to have a demonstration on later on. But first, we're going to see an adult video. And when I say adult video, I mean adult bicycle video. Hello. And then when we come back, then we're going to have the demonstration on the bike. And Ann and I will do that together with our 2 special guests. And so now we'll roll a video.
Every day, more and more people are discovering the benefits of bicycling. It's healthy, relaxing, and fun. It's great exercise and something everyone can enjoy. Millions of Americans are saving money, reducing pollution, and easing congestion every day by simply riding to work, to the store, or to visit friends and family. Whether you are riding for the first time since childhood or you ride often, following a few simple pointers can make your ride safe and enjoyable. Hi, I'm Celine Yeager. You know that old saying, you never forget how to ride a bike? Well, it turns out that's only partly true. Sure, you can get on your bike and pedal, but do you really know how to drive your bike in today's traffic? Yes, I said drive your bicycle. You see, riding a bicycle is very similar to driving a car. The same rules of the road apply to both. In many states, bicycles are considered vehicles, so bicyclists have the same responsibilities and rights as motorists. Here are some tips for safe riding. First, let's make sure you have a bike that fits you properly. Bikes these days come in a wide variety of styles and prices. Talk with the staff of your local bike shop about the kind of riding you'll do and choose the right bike for you. Hybrid and comfort bikes are great for everyday riding around town. Sport, touring, and racing bikes are better for longer rides. If you are riding off-road, head for the mountain bike section of the store for bikes with fatter tires and gearing better suited to unpaved trails.
Getting a bike that fits makes it easier and safer to handle and much more enjoyable to ride. Make sure there's an inch or two between you and the top tube on a road bike. And on a mountain bike, you want the clearance to be more like 5 inches to make it easier and safer to get off the bike on rough terrain. Adjust your seat height so there's a slight bend in your knee when your foot is on the pedal in the downmost position.
There are 3 pieces of equipment that you will need to stay safe. First, a bicycle helmet. You need to wear a bicycle helmet regardless of your skill level or reasons for riding. It is the single most important piece of safety equipment you can use. It significantly reduces your chance of head injury if you crash. Be safe and be a role model for other bicyclists. Wear a properly fitted helmet each time you ride. A properly fitted helmet should be comfortably snug. It shouldn't shake, and it should sit on your forehead about 2 fingers width between the brim and your brows. Your helmet should sit level on your head, and then make sure that the sliders meet in a V under your earlobes. Chin straps should be snug under your chin, with room to breathe, of course. Second, if you are riding at night or in low light conditions, you need lights and reflectors. Every state requires bicyclists to have a white front light and a red light or reflector on the back of their bike. Third, you want to be seen and recognized by motorists at any time of day or night, so wear bright clothing with reflective tape or markings. And now one more thing before you set off. You don't want your bike to fail you, so get in the habit of doing the ABC Quick Check before you ride. A is for air. Check that your tires are properly inflated. They should be pumped up to the inflation rating printed on the tire. Many bicycle pumps come with a pressure gauge, so you can make sure they're properly inflated. Low pressure tires can easily puncture. B is for brakes. Check that your brakes are working. Your brake lever shouldn't come closer than a thumb's width to the handlebar. Your wheels should spin freely when the brakes are off. C is for the cranks, chain, and cassette. Grab both crank arms like this and wiggle them to make sure they aren't loose. Spin the pedals and make sure the chain runs smoothly through the gears. Quick means making sure your wheels are on tight if you have quick release wheels. The wheels should be snug in the dropouts and the quick release lever fastened tight. Finally, check to make sure nothing else is loose on your bike. If there's anything you can't fix, take your bike to your local bike shop and get a professional to help you. Now we're ready to ride. Remember, bicyclists have the same responsibilities and rights as motor vehicle operators, so we follow the same rules of the road. Here are some important rules to remember. Ride in the same direction as traffic. Bicyclists riding the wrong way can cause a crash for 2 reasons. Turning motorists, in particular, are not looking for you there, and you can't see and follow the traffic signs or signals if you're heading the wrong way. Obey all traffic signs, signals, and road markings. This means stopping at stop signs and red lights, and yielding to crossing pedestrians. It also means riding in turn lanes when you turn, and straight lanes if you're going straight. Ride defensively. Look before riding out of driveways. Always look for turning vehicles and pedestrians in your path. Look behind you before changing lanes. Know the law. Laws differ in each state or jurisdiction. In some areas, it's illegal to ride your bicycle on the sidewalk. If you must ride on the sidewalk, look for turning or crossing vehicles at driveways and intersections. Every community has different rules and regulations for driving a bicycle. Know those that apply to you, obey them, and set a good example for others. Avoid road hazards. Carefully ride around drain grates, gravel, glass, and debris. Be predictable. Help motorists know exactly what you plan to do. Signal, make eye contact if you can, and ride without swerving. Signaling and checking behind you while riding straight takes practice, so working on these skills in a vacant lot is a smart idea. Stay to the right and pass on the left. This applies to the road and riding on a shared use path or trail. On a path, give an audible signal and always yield to pedestrians and people on horseback.
Fasten on your left.
When trails cross roadways, use caution, and obey any traffic signs and signals. Bicycling is fun, but it requires all your concentration. It requires using a helmet, lights, and bright colored clothing, and a bicycle in good repair that's properly fit to you. It requires you follow the traffic principles and be prepared to avoid hazards. This film was produced by the League of American Bicyclists with support of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. I'm Celine Yeager. Ride safe.
Okay, we're back for the second part of our program, and this is going to be the demonstration part. So, Ann, why don't you lead off, and we'll get things started.
We're going to get a little more specific now. We kind of talked generally, and a lot of people have physical problems, and they want to ride a bike, but they think they can't because of their physical problems. You guys see this all day, every day. What do you see the most? Where do you want to start as far as physical problems?
Knees.
Oh yeah, definitely knees. Hands down, if there's one condition that everyone comes in and says, you know, it hurts on my bike, it has got to be the knee. Also one of the most simple things, but that can be affected by so many different elements on the bike. In general, we always start the bike fit from the foot up because that's where you produce your power. So there's so many different elements that affect the knee. We see everything from IT band issues and issues at the kneecap to just common general aches and pains or a muscle that gets a little bit strained. Some things that we look at could include like cleats, which are hooking the shoe into the pedal of a bike. Sometimes if they're not straight or if they're not correctly rotated, that can cause some knee problems because it places the force, because you're connected to your bike here. If that force has nowhere to go, it often ends at the knee. Other things that can affect the knee can include like your crank length or these pieces on your bike that affect the pedals. So if you have the incorrect length, which isn't all that common, but that can affect the knee too. Also just looking at seat height and how forward and backward your saddle actually is can affect it, not to mention the tilt. So you can see already there's a lot that plays into it. So knee problems are definitely one of the key elements in terms of a bike fit.
You mentioned the tilt on the saddle, and I've had people complain many times that they felt like they were putting a lot of pressure on their arms, and I've found that they've had their saddle tilted way too forward. What would you recommend as a proper position for that?
You know, because there are so many different types of seats these days, like fancy ones with hole cutouts or, you know, like ones that come up in the back. In general, a good rule of thumb is just think about keeping the seat level, in general. Now, if you're predisposed to certain types of back or neck problems, or if there's adjustments we're looking to make to your bike that might correct for other elements that we can't necessarily change, then we might give it a little tilt. Or if we're looking at your pedal pattern or certain elements of your body that are tighter or not so much, we might change the seat in order to accommodate for all the other stuff going on. But in general, keep it on the level.
I agree.
So your war wounds from all of your bike accidents, right?
Yeah, and we might add that I've been treated, my doctor has sent me to these guys, and they are one of our sponsors too, and they're the reason we've gone blue, Therapeutic Associates, but they're very good at what they do. And we're not saying that go there or go one place over another, but what we're saying is that there is a difference when you do go to a therapist who's a professional in fitting bikes. And so I happen to agree with what they're saying because they fixed me up on a couple of occasions after some bike crashes.
You know, Bruce, I think the great thing about it is just knowing people can get back on their bikes. They can get on their bike whether they want health maintenance or commuting. They shouldn't stare at it up in the closet or up in the garage and say, oh, I'll never ride that thing again.
Well, I was like Humpty Dumpty, so you put me back together, and here I am. I'm riding again. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so what's next?
What's next? Well, let's just move on up the chain. One thing we also see is hips, or people. Well, we do see a lot of hips because they're attached to most people.
Everybody's got them.
Exactly. Nonetheless, you can see how you can change the hip angle, or some people who have common conditions such as arthritis might not be able to move their hips very well or as much. So we might accommodate by putting the seat up or down. But as physical therapists, we understand that there are different things besides just how your hip moves that can affect your hip. Not to mention, if we change the angle for your hip, how's that going to affect your knee, your ankle, your foot, your shoulder, your neck, the whole picture. So a lot of times, like, we can make accommodations, but we look at all the other things that happen because of those, which is important because even though you accommodate for one thing, you don't want to cause another problem that's going to come on 500 miles down the road.
Right.
And I was going to add, too, physical therapists are also manual therapists. So some of these restrictions that we see, maybe you can't get your hip past 90 degrees. There are things that you can do at home for stretches, and there are also things that we as therapists can do to mobilize the joints, to make the joints move better. So sometimes we don't even have to make the accommodation on the bike, or maybe short term can make the accommodation, and then as we work together in the clinic to gain back some of that motion at those joints that might be tight, then we can bring you back to a more normal position on the bike.
I remember having problems with my rotator cuff and all that, and could not get the full range of motion, and receiving the exercises to do as far as I could go for a certain count. And over time, and with some other things mixed in, I was able to get full range of motion again. So you kind of bring a person along slowly in that regard, don't you?
Yeah, we do.
And Jess makes a really good point that as physical therapists, like, even if we're only seeing you for a bike fit and we're looking at this, piece of metal and if you're lucky carbon fiber, when we see something like a hip restriction, a knee problem, an upper back issue going on, or a shoulder rotator cuff problem, we would accommodate the bike. But then we might even say, you might be appropriate for physical therapy. You might have pain on your bike, but you might have pain during other parts of your day. And why don't we look into this on a bigger level that affects, like, your whole day? So that's a really nice aspect, and it's really good because we can bring all these things into play. Like Jess was saying, we use manual therapy skills. We use very specific exercise techniques. And then we have a lot of just hands-on stuff that we can utilize in the clinic to kind of, speed your healing process or make you feel better with what you're doing. So
yes, I'm not new to bicycles. I've sold bicycles as a volunteer over many years, and one of the things I always recommend is for people to get a professional bike fit. And I think especially if you pay a lot of money for your bike,
yes,
you might as well have it fit you, because it's all about you when you go in for that bike fit. Is that right?
it is all about you when you're going for the bike fit.
And
Hands
that's our
down.
slogan, actually. It's
Yeah,
all
really.
about you.
I didn't realize that.
We're getting you a bumper sticker.
I want a jersey for that. Come on.
Yours will say, of course, it's all about me, but it's all about you.
Me, yes.
No, it is, and like everyone's personal anatomy is so different, whether it be, an old injury or tightness, or, say I turn right every day when I'm working and I'm working over here, I might have little bits of rotation throughout my body that are going to show up differently on my bike. But, even though they don't harm me during the day, it might be something that's going to cause me a problem if I'm pedaling for 5 hours or for 12 during STP, or 13 or 14 or 172 if you're really crazy. Nonetheless, looking at everyone's personal anatomy is really important because very few of us are built perfectly symmetrically, with our top half being the same as our bottom half. So you might have someone who's 5'5" and someone who's 5'5", and they're going to fit completely differently on the same bike. Someone might have a longer torso or longer legs.
Yes.
Someone might have like a leg length discrepancy.
Right.
Someone might have a different, arch support or something like that. Or, just a rotation through their mid-back, tight muscle somewhere, old injury, a war wound,
Right.
a good story to tell, and then, a change to be made on the bike because of it. So everybody's a different puzzle to put together.
That's really exciting to me because I don't know, I think of therapeutic associates or any kind of physical therapy as something you do after you've had an accident. But you're saying I can improve my quality of life. Sometimes things happen gradually. You don't even appreciate that you've lost some of your quality of life, that you can't do certain things. And you're saying, gosh, take a look at this. Maybe you can ride a bike. Maybe you can do some of these activities if we just take a good look at you and help you out.
Well, and hands down, that's true. Like, I can't tell you how many people I've seen. They're like, oh, sure, let's check out my bike. Let's see how you do. And you make so many little changes, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize it hurt. But it feels so good right away, And it's like, it's amazing the response you get. And to give people that freedom to get back out on their bike, and get excited about being healthy and doing what's environmentally safe and sound, you know, and just like getting moving, especially during summer.
Yeah.
In Portland, we have these very few months we have
That's
to use
right.
them.
We got to be out there.
That's right.
So
Now,
those little things are great.
is there a difference between a women's specific design maybe as opposed to any other kind of design? I notice that sometimes you can see a bike that has very narrow handlebars or short handlebars, and then some that have for broad shoulders. Is that something that you look at all?
Definitely. And a women's specific bike, some people that you talk to will say it's all a crock of you know what, and some people will say it's really important. And different companies put different elements into those. The most common thing they do is they do give narrower handlebars, and they'll put them on a women's bike. But what we will do as a therapist is measure your shoulder length or width across, and then measure your bars and make sure you're fitted to them correctly. And one thing that's easy is we might say, you just need to go get another set of bars at the bike shop. So there's, you know, 30, 35 bucks you spent, but big deal. It makes your neck feel better. Awesome.
more
It's
comfort.
so worth it.
And
you know?
you're not guessing. I mean, this is
No,
something
it's-
that fits you, and it's appropriate for you to have.
To the centimeter.
I like
Absolutely.
it.
The other thing that's different with women's bikes is sometimes they'll take the crank lengths and make them different and make the width from the actual frame of the bike in and out for the pedals, because women have a different hip ratio. Another thing they've done is change the seat post angle slightly to accommodate for women's longer legs and different like upper body styles. Now that said, you can buy a pink bike that is just like a men's bike, only it's pink, but you can also find the good ones as well. But most bikes can be fit to anyone as long as it's about the right size, just made with little changes made. So it's not that women need a women's specific bike, and it's not that a guy couldn't do really well in one too. So they like pink, and they're manly enough to take it.
So what other things are we looking for now?
Well,
Should I get
Yep.
into?
go ahead. So Jess is going to kind of sit down on hoods. One thing we might look at, well, depends. If we're looking for specific injuries or specific problems, we might look at, say, shoulders. Shoulders should be at a specific angle, or relatively so, depending on whether you're at this part of your bike, or you're right here, down here, or you know, if you're in a time trial bike and you have to be way out in front, or if you're on a beach cruiser and you want to be sitting up. So there are very specific little elements to look at. Also, even just Jess's position on a bike. If I was seeing Jess for low back, neck, and shoulder pain, she might look like this. Or do your tilt there. So I see cyclists like this all the time. Can I tell you, I see professional cyclists like this on the road all the time, and I think, oh, that hurts so bad.
I was going to say
inside.
that hurts.
It does. So we might just look at position on a bike. I mean, say Jess came in and everything hurts, and I measure her out, and I'm like, you know what, your bike is perfect, but let's work on how you're sitting. And then let's look at, why are you sitting this bad way? Is it because it's just how you're trained? Is it because you have short muscle groups that we need to work on stretching? You're missing some strength in some of your core muscles, so you can't support yourself in the right position? We might look at those things. We might look at, you know, is it because your balance is off? So you're having to suck yourself into your bike so tightly because you can't sit up tall and take your hands away from the bars. So we look at all different elements and then put them to play. We also might look at like low back stuff. That's a pretty common one. And one thing that affects low back issues a ton is just how you pedal. So there are the people that you see go on the hills and they're in their big chain ring and they're pushing so hard. But you can imagine how if your body's doing this up the hill, you might hurt later, you know? Because if I stand here and do that, I'll hurt later too. So nonetheless, we might look at that and say, hey, Jess, let's look at your pedaling style. Let's look at what motion your feet are going through on those pedals and how fast they're doing it and what resistance.
We have just about 4 minutes left. See, I told you that time goes by fast. I had one recommendation once because years ago I used to hunch my shoulders, and I was always reminded, relax your shoulders.
Yeah.
Is that something that you would advise people on as well?
All the time, and commonly, what we see, shoulder, here, use your upper trap. There you go.
Have to think about it.
Give yourself a nice little forward head. Oh yeah. Commonly see this, and people complain of neck and shoulder pain or mid-back pain. But common cue is just to bring your shoulder blades together, bring the middle of your spine forward through your breastbone, and then just think about like kind of a string going through your spine, pulling you long so that your spine is in neutral. That alone just really opens you up on a bike and can decrease a lot of compression through your spine, which can cause a lot of that muscle cramping and pain. So.
Well, not to interrupt you, but we only have just a few minutes left. Can you explain the spine? We have it here.
I can't explain it.
It's
just there.
In 2 minutes or less.
A 60 to 90-second version, and then we're going to be signing off pretty soon. So.
Well, so this is the top of the head, or the cranium. This is the cervical spine. You always hear the word cervical. This is the thoracic spine and the lumbar spine, where most people have most of their issues. And then we have both the iliac crests. You can see the discs in here, which is probably one of the most important things that people need to know about. And if you tune in on this, there is a red portion there you see, and that's what represents a herniated disc. So you hear of people who've had ruptured discs or herniated discs. These discs are the shock absorbers of your spine. So if when you're on the bike you have the correct position, you're going to maximize how you use those discs. If you're in the wrong position, you can see how the rotation is going to start to wear and tear at those discs and start to cause damage. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, we only have 2 minutes left, and I would like to thank you. I know that time went by, 'cause it seems like you could spend an awful lot of time on that. Do you have one final comment that you would like to make, Ann?
Well, again, I've been biking for years, and it just never occurred to me that, you know, the body and the bike are just two unique elements that need to be fit together. And what works for you may not work for me. I just hadn't really thought of the uniqueness of each of us like that.
Advice from road buddies always isn't the best advice out there.
Yeah.
So
No, it's entertaining.
So basically, you're going to get a bike that basically fits you. You want to go to a person that can do an expert fit. It's a little bit different than some of the fits that you would get at a bike shop, if I'm understanding correctly. And so you would be looking at a bike that fits you basically, a bike that fits you perfectly because you went to a professional to have that done.
Yep.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
been
you for
really
having
a
us.
great show, and I loved every minute of it. I learned something at every show, and I learned even more tonight. Well, Ann, I think we had a pretty good time here, and I think that our viewers can walk away with something that really is going to benefit them on their bicycle.
Well, I sure hope so. I hope this enables some people to get on their bikes that thought they really were not going to be able to ride a bike, and it's a possibility for a lot of people. I'm excited.
Yeah, and they need to get themselves fit, but while you're doing that, remember to obey all traffic laws. And in order to obey the traffic laws, you're going to have to know what they are. You can get a motor vehicle manual or a bicycle manual free by contacting Northwest Bicycle Safety Council at nwbicyclesafetycouncil.org, and we will send that out to you free. And please look out for one another, pass a cyclist and a pedestrian with care, and please share the road. And Ann, I think we're going to have a great show next month because we're going to have a fashion show. So you're going to want to tune in. Team Estrogen will be here. And we want to thank you for joining us, and have a good evening.